Let's bring in our political editor, Andrew Clennell. And Andrew, rates also featuring prominently during question time.
That's right, Kieran, as you would expect they would. Jim Chalmers was on his feet. Immediately, you and Ross were reporting the decision to say that this would be a harder time for families. Let's face it, if you had a mortgage and you got the same mortgage from 10 years ago, you're getting the rates you had heading towards back then. But if you bought in the last couple of years, you're really copping it. And with groceries going up and petrol going up and all the rest, there will be young people getting second or third jobs out of this. This is something the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, sought to acknowledge here, but I guess he didn't have many answers except to say Australians knew they were in for pain. I guess he said previously things will get better. There is an expectation in the government that after this it could be 0.25 rather than 0.5 rises. I did predict 0.5 today, and I suggested after today there will be further rises in the rest of the year, but not as large. Here's Jim Chalmers in question time.
Now, Australians knew that this was coming, but it won't make it any easier for them to handle. Now, average homeowners with a $330,000 outstanding balance will have to find about $90 a month more for repayments as a consequence of this decision today, on top of around $220 extra in repayments since early May. For Australians with a $500,000 mortgage, it's about an extra $140 a month, in addition to the extra $335 they've had to find since early May.
Jim Chalmers there in question time. The Assistant Treasurer, Stephen Jones, will join me shortly to talk about this economic news. But today the opposition trying to get the Prime Minister again on a bit of a gotcha question.
And he couldn't name the cash rate, or he didn't, perhaps I should say. Yesterday he said it was 1.3, it was 1.35, I think. And today it went up to 1.85. He declined to do it there. I guess he's not wanting to encourage these continued gotchas after a couple of mistakes during the election campaign. Looks like the opposition will persist with this tactic. Anthony Albanese, though, I think knows it's hard for families.
How much higher is the cash rate compared to when those opposite came to government? What is the impact on the average mortgage payment?
The cash rate went up by 0.5 today, as it went up by 0.5 last month, and it went up by 0.5 the month before.
Yeah, the Prime Minister talking in very soft tones as well, and again almost out of sorrow than anger in responding. He doesn't want to sort of give it too much attention, but everything he said there was right, although he could have said more, as you said. Big news on the economic front, big news internationally as well, as revealed by the President at the White House.
Yes, the killing by drone strike of the new head of Al-Qaeda after Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri. You would expect the Australian government to react to this and see it as good news. A bit of bipartisanship here before question time, with Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton both welcoming the news of the American action.
For 2 decades, this man fled the consequences of his crimes. Our thoughts today are with the loved ones of all of his victims. May they find some small solace in the knowledge that he cannot cause more grief through his acts of terror.
Al-Zawahiri's death may provide some solace in the knowledge that the planners and perpetrators of terrorism will always be relentlessly pursued and hunted. For them, neither place nor time will provide a sanctuary from the forces of justice.
So from those international developments back to a promise very much focused on households during the election campaign, which the opposition, this is probably the issue that the question they've asked most often since the Parliament has sat.
Well, cost of living is the biggest issue in Australia, and a lot of blame, if there is any blame to be apportioned other than international events, can of course be put at the coalition, the form of government. But they've hit on this $275, your power prices will go down by, promised by Anthony Albanese, and Anthony Albanese won't repeat it. Now, Peter Dutton was actually interjecting in the House when I was in there saying, say 275, it's 3 numbers, say 275, you're going to save power, your power bills are going to be saved by that much. Anthony Albanese retorts, however, that the fact is you had a power price determination up 15%, 15 to 20%, that you held back. It was released a week after the election. almost seeming to say, how can we commit to this promise given that?
Prime Minister, your website currently states, and I quote, a Labor government will cut power bills for families and businesses by $275 a year. Is this still your policy?
If you have a policy that upgrades...
Order.
Well, if you're not interested...
The Prime Minister is being relevant, entirely relevant, and I give him the call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order.
Those opposite...
Order.
And the Deputy Opposition Leader Susan Lee followed this up with a harder question. Anthony Albanese followed up with a sledge, mentioning a resignation previously from Cabinet by Susan Lee a few years ago over an alleged travel rorts affair.
Given you've dumped your promise to cut power bills by $275, will you fess up and correct your mistake?
I don't seek to have a point of order on irony to rule it out, given the record of the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, who made a bit of a mistake that led to her resignation from the front bench of the Liberal Party.
Order.
But now she's back.
And then Energy Minister Chris Bowen hit back over a promise out of the Coalition Party room that the opposition is going to look at nuclear energy as a potential policy to take to the next election.
We know the sun doesn't send a bill and the wind doesn't send an invoice, something that the honourable members opposite haven't worked out. Normally I'd say the opposition doesn't have any ideas, but to be fair, we always try to be fair on this side. They've got one today. Their answer to rising energy prices is to put more of the most expensive form of energy, nuclear, into the system. That's their answer. That's the Leader of the Opposition's big announcement today, that he supports the most expensive form of energy available, nuclear energy. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, there's the Climate Minister. I was surprised after yesterday it seemed like Peter Dutton firmed up the Coalition's position on extending the fuel excise cut, but today there wasn't a mention of it.
That's right.
That's unusual.
But they might return to it. They returned to the CFMEU today, for example, after dropping it yesterday. But you're right, they're not really pushing it. It's almost like he just put it out there and saw how to go. I don't know how it went in Coalition Party room, for example.
Yeah, right. It just seems like a pretty big policy sort of call, expensive, and then they put it out there and then drop it. But there was some support for a point of order from the opposition today by the Leader of the House.
Yeah, that's right. So we don't see this often, so a bit of a light moment. I thought I'd show it. Basically, Paul Fletcher makes a point of order, Manager of Opposition Business. Pat Conroy's the Minister for the Pacific or whatever, answering a question. Tony Burke, the Manager of Government Business, he just says, well, actually, the guy's right. What about that? So the Speaker, Milton Dick, agrees and rules the Minister get back relevant to the question.
And it will support economic and social development in the Pacific, repairing a damaged relationship that occurred under the last government, where you had a PM who blocked action on climate change, you had an opposition leader who made jokes about rising climate.
The Minister will resume his seat, the Manager on the Opposition Business.
Well, Mr Speaker, even on the ruling that you've given, there was nothing in this question inviting the Minister to comment on what happened under the previous government.
I'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Speaker. He's probably got a point on this one.
So there you go, question time today.